So we're just carrying on from the previous lesson, but this time what we're going to do is look at the main covering for the wing, which is going to go up here. And we're going to approach this one slightly differently to the rest of the wing. So I'm going to select the model, and what I'm going to do is use this here to clear all these previews. So that's not deleting anything, all it's doing is clearing the preview. If we want to bring back the preview, we can click this button here, but that's currently only set to preview the current description only, and it will update automatically. But what we want to do is preview all collections. If we click this button, it then brings back all the feathers. So for now, let's clear everything. So we want the last one to just cover the rest of the wing. Now obviously you could add in a lot more layers if you need to. So what I'm going to do is just select those 3 layers which we've already used, and then invert that selection just by holding down Shift. And then I'm going to create a new description. And this time it's going to be called Cover Left. Again, we want to bring in our own custom geometry, which will be the feathers. And this time we're going to have it random over the surface. And we're going to use attributes and expressions again. So let's click Create. And again, we need to specify a few feathers to use. So we have cover A and cover B. So they're 2 different feathers which are just going to cover that area. Let's click Open. Again, we don't want to bring in the materials because all the feathers use the same shader. So we don't want to bog the scene down with 16 different shaders. So we'll click No. But what I will do is go to our preview and we'll make that a different colour just so it stands out. Maybe make it green. So as you can see, we've got our main feathers coming out of the back like so, and then we have our feathers here which are going to cover the actual wing itself. And again, they're a bit long, they're not pointing in the right direction, so we can go back to our primitives tab. I'm going to change this just to update the current description that we're working on. So let's just start playing around with some of these and see if we can get them to tilt back slightly. It's running a bit slow, but this, if you notice this time we've got a density tab, a density slider rather than a spacing slider. That's because we're using it randomly rather than in uniform columns and rows. So let's drop this to 0.2, maybe 0.1. Like so. That'll just make it a bit easier for us to work with. So let's see, that's just twisting around that way. So tilt. We want the feathers to lay backwards, that's better. So sort of like that. And then we can twist them as well just to fan them out a little bit. As you can see, they're now flowing across here quite nicely. They're a bit big though. So again, we can go up, adjust the length. Let's just zoom in a little bit more. The length and the width. Now you'll notice that half of this hasn't updated, and that's because it's set to update only what is visible on the screen. So if I click this now, that comes back. If I zoom in, click update, they're missing. So don't worry about that if those just sort of disappear. So again, they're all quite uniform shape, and we can use our expressions again. So can we still paste this one in? So let's see if the length, it's going to get longer as it goes down here. Let's click accept. Sort of like so. So maybe that's the sort of effect that you're after. So what if we divide it by this instead? The feathers start off longer and get shorter towards the end. Like so. Maybe we want to get rid of that random value. Maybe divide by 10. Let's just see what it says, what it does. if we just divide by p, now that's obviously too small. So maybe we times by 10 instead. Accept. Now if you're not sure with these, it is always good to just experiment to see what sort of effects you get. So maybe if we drop this down to 50, we'll see what sort of result we get. Maybe we want it to be higher, so maybe 150. Maybe if none of those are working, we could try something else. So let's have a look. So we could use one of these, a sine perhaps, and an angle. Accept. So that's a bit more gradual. To what we want. And there's all sorts of other things that we can play around with in here. So up here we have a mask for the density up there. We could also play around with this, so we could use our p-value again, multiplied by, let's say, 1000. Not sure that's actually done anything, but it's worth just going in and trying it out. Or like it's saying down in the bottom here, they're not recommended, so maybe use PG or prefg instead. So let's try prefg times by 1000, update, or maybe divided by. So that's a bit better. We've got, what this is doing is it's adjusting the density, so there's less density down here and it's more dense up here. Like so. So it's all just about playing around with these values. Maybe we want the feathers to be smaller at the end. And larger at one end. But this is all I'm going to be doing now, is just focusing on these main feathers and just playing around with the values, adjusting and experimenting with the expressions. Like I say, if you're not sure on anything, there's a help there which tells you all the modifiers and everything that which you can use. And once you start typing something in, the help comes up. Like when we typed in, even just pressing R, it brings up this handy little window here which shows you all the things that you can play around with. Round, float, round, random, for example. And if you're not sure what they do, put them in, experiment. If it doesn't work, then delete it. It's not the end of the world. Like if this doesn't work, we can just come back. As long as you leave that A there and this here, click accept, then it's all fine. And even if you do break it, you can click on here and go reset to slider. And that just puts it back. So at this stage, as you can see, it's just all tweaking these values. So for this wing, we're pretty much done, and I'm going to leave you to play around with this now, and I'm going to play around with it a little bit more. And then what we'll do in the next video is we will start to transfer what we've done on the left wing across to the right wing.